Hello my dear students of 9th standard. Today we'll start the economic first chapter, natural resources. As you already studied about the human wants are unlimited, but the resources to satisfy these wants are very limited. This gave rise to the scarcity of resources. Here the resources, which is a broad term that all the materials that human beings use indicating their economic activities. You know, the human beings, they use various type of resources to perform the economic activities like the production, exchange, then and the consumption. So all these activities depends upon the availability of resources. But when these resources are not available in abundant, this gave rise to the scarcity of resources. Among the various type of resources, natural resources are the major. Among all the resources, natural resource, it is a very important and essential resource which is useful for the economic activity. You know, the natural resources are the gift of nature, and they are without these natural resources, without which the survival of life is impossible. Without the natural resource like the soil, the water, sunlight, forest, air, biodiversity and mineral resources, etc. are very essential for the survival of human life. Without these natural resources, the life is impossible. So natural resource is a very important resource. But however, with the increase in the population, today the global population is increasing at a very faster rate, and which is becoming very difficult to provide the basic amenities to the growing population. Here we study about the meaning of the resources, natural resource, and the types of the natural resources. Natural resources, these are the gift of nature, and they are naturally occupying substances that are considered valuable natural resource. These are the valuable resources because without these natural resources, the human life is impossible. Thus the soil is which grows the food. Soil, which is one of the important natural resource. The soil which grows the food. Then water that support many of our activities. Water which support number of economic activities. And you know, the trees, it gives us many services. Then the air we breathe, minerals that are raw material for many industries. You know, the mineral resource, minerals are the raw materials. These are used as a raw material for the various industries, are all natural resources. Without these, our life would not have been comfortable. Without these resources, our life will not be comfortable. Means we require all these resources. Without these resources, our life is impossible, and our life will not be comfortable without the natural resource. Now there are two types of natural resources. They are the renewable resources and non-renewable resources. Some natural resources get replenished as we use them. Some natural resources, they get replenished as we use these resources. These resources are called as the renewable resources. As we use the resources, they once again replenished, and these resources are called as the renewable resources. Here nature through its natural process, they will replenish with the natural process goes on replacing them. The nature go on replacing all these resources, means they will not get exhaust. They once again replenish. So they are called as the renewable resources. They are also called as non-exhaustible resources. They are also known as the non-exhaustible resource. They will not get exhaust. The nature itself replenish these resources. So they are called as the non-exhaustible resources. For example, water, land, forest, air, sunlight and heat are the example for the renewable resources. They will not get exhausted. They are non-exhaustible resources. The nature itself through its natural process replenish all these resources. So they are called as the non-exhaustible resources or the renewable resources. Now the non-renewable resources, some natural resources get depleted as you go on using these resources. Some resources are there, they will get replenished, they will get depleted. As we go on use more and more, they will get exhaust and they are emptied and cannot created again. They will not create again and again. Once they exhaust, they will exhaust, but they will not renewed, or they will not naturally, in a natural process, they will not create once again. So they are known as, these resources are known as exhaustible resources. So they are known as exhaustible resources. The minerals like iron ore, copper, gold, manganese, bauxite, etc. These are the exhaustible resources. These are the non-renewable resources. And the mineral fuels like coal, petroleum, natural gas, uranium, thorium, etc. are also the non-renewable resources, and which get depleted and cannot be renewed. They get depleted. The mineral resources, once they get depleted, they will not be created or they will not be renewed. The coals, when it get depleted, it will finish, it will exhaust, it will not be created or it cannot be renewed. Nature cannot replenish them through its natural process. So they are known as the non-renewable resources. The resources can be also classified into biotic and abiotic resources, and further the resources are also classified as a biotic resources and abiotic resources. Here biotic resources are those that are derived from the living organisms. Biotic resources which are obtained from the living organisms, and abiotic resources that can be derived from the non-living components of the resources. So these are the two type of resources. Apart from the renewable resource and non-renewable resources, there are other two type of resources. They are the biotic resources which are obtained. Biotic resources are obtained from the living organisms, and abiotic resources are derived from the non-living organisms. Here the plants and animals are the biotic resources. Plants and animals are the biotic resources, whereas water, soil, forest, minerals, etc. are the abiotic resources. So these are the other two type of resources. Now biotic resources and abiotic resources. Now the scarcity of resources, all our basic needs like food, shelter and clothing are met out of various natural resources. Without natural resources, we cannot get our necessities like food, clothing and shelter. Here the natural resource like air, water, soil, minerals, coal, petroleum, animals and plants. But how long these precious materials or materials of the nature will be available for our use? How long all these mineral resources, how long all these resources could be available for our use? You know, the growing population and rapid industrialization, urbanization have created heavy demand for all these minerals. Today, the growing population, three factors: growing population, industrialization and urbanization. These created a heavy demand for our natural resources, especially the relation to our increasing wants. The available resources are very scarce. Available resources are very scarce because our demands, our wants are more because of the industrialization. For industrialization, we need various type of minerals, various type of natural resources, and for urbanization also we need the resources. So the demand for the resources is increasing, but but the availability of resource is very scarce. While the non-renewable resources are available in a fixed quantity, non-renewable resources, they are available in a fixed quantity. Renewable resources likely to be exploited beyond our generation rates. Renewable resources are using beyond our generations. Beyond our generations, we are using the renewable resources. So the main factors for the scarcity of resources are the first one is overpopulation. Overpopulation, it is one of the important factor which is responsible for the scarcity of resources. Increasing population requires additional land for growing additional food. Increasing population, what it requires? Increasing population also requires the basic necessities of life like food, shelter and clothing. So to grow the foods, we require additional land for the cultivation of food grains and providing shelter, and also for providing shelter also we require additional land. So for providing food and shelter, we require the additional land, which is met through the conservation of forest. How we will get that additional land? By conservation of forest land into agricultural land. Conservation of forest land by converting it into agricultural land. Conversion of land, conversion of forest into agricultural land, and agricultural land into the residential land. Here agricultural land is converted into the residential areas, and forest area is converted into for the cultivation purposes, for agricultural purposes, and commercial and industrial land. So most of the land is converted for the residential purposes, industrialization purposes, and for the commercial activities purposes. So overpopulation is also the factor for the scarcity of resources. Now the growing industrialization, with the growth of industries, when increased industrialization, extraction of mineral ores, crude oil and water increasing, result in emptying the mines. When the number of industries increases, first of all what they require? First of all they require the raw materials like the mines, supplying of mines like the mineral ores, coal, bauxite, mineral ore, etc., mica. So they require the raw materials. They require the mineral ores. Then they also require the crude oil. Crude oil is also needed for the industries, and they also require abundant supply of water, that resulting in the emptying of minerals, oil wells and water resources. So industrialization, they emptied the mines, the coal mines, manganese, then bauxite, mica. They emptied the ores, and they also emptied the oil wells and also the water sources. So industrialization, it also creates the scarcity of the resources. Now the expanding of urban areas, expansion of the urban areas. Here urban areas are those where the huge population lives in a small area. Huge population lives in a small area, and these are called as urban areas. And naturally the demand for the resources and generation of waste is very high, contributing to reduction in the quality and quantity of the resources. Here demand for the resources and generation of waste. There is a demand in urban areas. The demand for the resources is more, and generation of waste is also more. It is contributing to the reduction in the quality and quantity of the resources. It reduces the expansion of the urban areas. It reduces the quantity as well as the quality of the resources. Here the flight of Bangalore, which receives Kaveri water from hundreds of kilometers. The flights of Bangalore, which receives Kaveri water from hundreds of kilometers away, and that pure water is converted into a waste water. That pure water, Kaveri water is a pure water, and it is converted into the waste water by households and industrial units. That is used for the household and industrial units. So the expansion of the urban area also creates the scarcity of resources. Now the atmospheric pollution. Atmospheric pollution with greater burning of fossil fuels like coal, diesel and petrol. More harmful elements like carbon dioxide, hydrogen sulfide, soot and dust get into the air. Air pollution take place when there is a greater use of the fossil fuels. When we use more and more coal, diesel and petrol, they release the carbon dioxide, then hydrogen sulfide, soot and dust into the atmosphere, and it causes the air pollution. This reduces the availability of the clear water. It reduces the availability of the clear air. That is the air pollution. So you have to stop the use of the fossil fuels like coal. You have to use these coal in a limited way. Use the diesel and petrol in a limited way, and you have to stop the air pollution because they release the harmful gases into the atmosphere. Therefore, we have to reduce the use of all these fossil fuels. Now the water pollution and land degradation. When the human, hospital, industrial and other waste is dumped in the open space, they affect the land and water. The waste materials, when the waste materials from the urban areas, the waste materials from the hospitals, waste material from the industrial areas and other wastes, when you dump into the wasteland or in the open space, it affects the land and water. It affects the land and also the water. Here, reducing the quality as well as availability. It reduces the quality and as well as the availability. Water is also polluted, and agricultural land and household activities also polluted. The dumped waste, it reduces the quality of the land. It reduces the fertility of the soil. And when the industrial influence, industrial waste is dumped into the open land or into the sea or into the water bodies like the rivers, it pollute the water, and land also get degraded because the land loses its fertility. So the increase in population and their increased economic activities have increased the scarcity of resources and affected the quality of resources also. Therefore, increased population and increased economic activities. Here, increased economic activities like production, exchange, consumption, utility, these are the economic activities. When there is increased economic activities, have increased the scarcity of resources and affected the quality of resources also. They also affected the quality of the resources because resources, continuous use of resources, their quantity and quality also, their quality also decreases. Now, how we can overcome the scarcity of resources? Today we are facing the scarcity of resources. How we can overcome, how we can solve the problem of the scarcity of resources? Here we have to follow some steps to overcome the scarcity of resources. Here exploration and discovery of new sources of resources. We have to explore, we have to discover the new sources of resources. We have to explore or discover the new source of resources. Here discovering substitutes and alternatives. We have to discover the substitutes and alternatives. Substitutes and alternatives like solar and wind power in place of the coal power. We have to stop the use of the coal. So we have to use the solar energy and wind energy. When you use solar and wind energy, because sunlight, it is a renewable resource, but coal, it is a non-renewable resources. In order to save the coal, first you have to use the solar energy and wind energy in place of coal energy. Like we have to protect the non-renewable resource. We have to save the non-renewable resource like coal and ethanol in place of diesel. Diesel, it is a non-renewable resource. It will not replenish by the natural process. So diesel is a non-renewable resource. Therefore, in place of diesel, we have to use the ethanol. And plastic furniture in the place of wooden furniture. Forest, we have to save the forest. We have to protect the forest. We have to conserve the forest. Therefore, we have to use plastic furniture in the place of the wooden furniture. Then only we can overcome the scarcity of resources. Then increasing efficiency of resources. We have to increase the efficiency of the resources. Use the machines that consume less resources. The machine which consume less resources like 4-stroke engine in place of 2-stroke engine. 2-stroke engine, it consume that more resources. It consume more resources. So in place of 2-stroke machines, we have to use the 4-stroke machine. That is increasing the efficiency of the resources. We have to use the efficiency of resources by using the 4-stroke machines. Now, government policy is to regulate the overuse of resources and pollutions. Then the government policy and programs. Government also formulate the policies and program about the use of resources. Now, educating people about the conservation of resources. We have to educate, we have to awaken the people about the use of resources, the use of the mineral resources, the use of the natural resources, and also the importance of the natural resources. So, we have to awaken the people and less polluting ways of doing everyday activities. Less polluting ways of doing everyday activities, because industries, mills, they are working 24 hours. So 24 hours these industries are releasing the harmful gases and the waste materials. So they are affecting the air pollution and water pollution. So we have to awaken the people, we have to educate the people about the conservation of resources and less polluting ways of doing everyday activities. These are the methods or these are the elements to be taken to solve the problem of the scarcity of resources. And students, this year some topics are deleted. They are page number 125, that is conservation of resources. That topic is completely deleted. And page number 126, that is reducing our ecological footprint. It is also deleted. And next chapter, what can you do to reduce our ecological footprint? These three topics are completely deleted, and you have to study only the meaning and types. The meaning and types of resources, non-renewable resources, non-renewable resources, scarcity of resources, and the causes for increasing scarcity of resources. And the last point is, that is the steps taken to overcome the scarcity of resources. Only these topics are retained and all other topics are deleted. So you have to study up to the page number 124. That is from 122 to 124. We have to read properly. Only limited syllabus is there. That is natural resource. So these are the only that meaning and types of resources, scarcity of resources, causes for the scarcity of resources, and the remedies taken to, measures taken to reduce the scarcity of resources.